Hello hockey fans, Oddman Rush here and welcome to my very first video on the Elite Prospects YouTube channel. Oh, this is all rather exciting, isn't it? With the 2022 NHL Trade Deadline just around the corner, it's expected that there will be a number of notable moves before the March 21st deadline. Sure, the trade tracker has been pretty quiet in the run-up to the event, and teams have been hesitant to pull the trigger, but thanks to Josh Manson's trade to Colorado, things have started to pick up over the last few days. Since the trade deadline has been around for quite some time now, there have been plenty of blockbuster deals over the years. And whether they're buying for the playoffs or selling for the future, teams are eager to use the deadline to help shape the future of their franchise. However, after spending the last few days looking through deadline trades of seasons past, I have found the most lopsided deal the league has ever seen. So in today's video, join me as we explore the biggest trade deadline steal in NHL history. Let us begin by looking at the trade itself. On March 18th, 1997, the Toronto Maple Leafs traded defenseman Larry Murphy to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for future considerations. While the future considerations would ultimately amount to nothing in return, according to Ray Perillo of The Inquirer, Toronto also agreed to pay a third of Murphy's contract until the end of the following season, meaning that the Leafs were paying Detroit to let Murphy play for them while they received absolutely nothing in return. Sounds like a pretty strange deal to me, don't you think? So why was this trade the biggest steal in deadline history? Well, let's take a look at the lone player included in this deal and explore how both his career as well as the two teams involved were affected by this trade. The fourth overall pick of the 1980 NHL draft by the Los Angeles Kings, Larry Murphy would earn a place on the Kings roster for the following 1980-81 season and burst onto the scene as one of the top young blue liners in the league. With 16 goals and 76 points in 80 games, Murphy set a new NHL record for the most assists and points by a rookie defenseman, records that still stand over 4 decades later. Not a bad first impression, eh, folks? Following his incredible rookie season, Murphy would cement his reputation as one of the best offensive defensemen the league has ever seen. Having potted 207 points in 242 games with the Kings, 345 points in 453 games with the Washington Capitals, as well as 93 points in 121 games with the Minnesota North Stars, the former 4th overall draft pick had been quite the productive player during the first 11 years of his NHL career. However, it wasn't until Murphy joined the Pittsburgh Penguins that his career would reach legendary status. After starting the 1990-91 season with Minnesota, and after scoring 15 points in his first 31 games of the year, Murphy was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins on December 11th, 1990, along with Peter Taglianetti, in exchange for Chris Dahlquist and Jim Johnson. Having been shipped off to a cup contender, and having joined a team featuring two of the best forwards the game has ever seen, the 29-year-old would take his game to even greater heights. During his 4.5 seasons in Pittsburgh, Murphy would score 301 points in 336 regular season games, was named to the league's second All-Star team twice, and also booked his first trip to the NHL All-Star game too. If all of that wasn't impressive enough though, Murphy's 39 points in 44 playoff games during his first 2 years with the team would help Pittsburgh win back-to-back championships, as Pittsburgh won both the 1991 and the 1992 Stanley Cup. So after failing to win a championship during the first decade of his NHL career, Larry Murphy had just won a pair of cups during his first 2 years in Pittsburgh. Now that's how you make an impact, folks. Once the lockout-shortened 94-95 season had come to an end, and having scored 38 points in 48 games with the Penguins, Murphy would be on the move once again, as he was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs on July 8, 1995, in exchange for Dmitry Mironov and a 1996 second-round pick. Though Murphy had grown up cheering for the Leafs and was thrilled to join the organisation, this partnership would soon come to an unfortunate end. The 95-96 NHL season would see Murphy join the Maple Leafs for the very first time and look to make a strong first impression for his hometown team. Though he was one of the oldest players on the roster, and he was paid one of the highest salaries on the team, the 35-year-old defenseman would continue to produce impressive scoring numbers, as he potted 12 goals and 61 points in 82 games, good enough for third in scoring across the entire Leafs roster. Unfortunately though, Murphy's clear shortcomings defensively, coupled with Toronto's inconsistent play, meant that the Leafs finished the year with a 34, 36 and 12 record, and a first-round playoff exit at the hands of the St. Louis Blues. However, if Murphy thought his debut year in Ontario was bad enough, his sophomore season with the team would be much, much worse. The 96-97 season saw Murphy suit up for the Leafs once again and look to pick up right where he left off during his debut year with the team. While the 36-year-old would continue to score at a decent pace, since he notched 39 points in his first 69 games of the year, the Leafs would struggle in the standings all year long. After losing 5 of their first 6 regular season games, and after losing 11 of their first 20, the Leafs approached the 1997 trade deadline with an abysmal 26, 38 and 6 record, good enough for last in the Central Division and 12th place in the Western Conference. While Murphy's play was far from being the sole cause of this disappointment, many people who watched the games didn't quite see it that way. In fact, Murphy would become somewhat of a scapegoat for the entire team's woes, as ESPN's Scott Burnside wrote that Murphy was, quote, subjected to merciless catcalling by the Maple Leafs faithful and attacks in the local press. This onslaught was further exacerbated once team captain Doug Gilmour was traded to the New Jersey Devils in February of 1997, leaving Murphy as the highest paid player on the roster and subject to even greater criticism from fans. This dire situation, coupled with Murphy's sizable contract, as well as his scoring numbers no longer outweighing his lackluster defensive play, prompted Leafs general manager Cliff Fletcher to make a drastic change. Just before the trade deadline, on March 18, 1997, the Toronto Maple Leafs traded Murphy to the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for future considerations. So after a season and a half in Toronto, and after scoring 100 points in 151 games during that span, Larry Murphy was heading to Hockeytown while the Leafs gained absolutely nothing in return. Whilst I can certainly understand the desire to shake things up, save some money and take the team in a new direction, failing to receive even a single asset for your team's highest scoring defenseman and one of the greatest offensive blue liners in NHL history is simply inexcusable, regardless of how the rest of the story played out. Interestingly, it seems as if Murphy was pretty reluctant to let this trade happen. Despite the continuous onslaught from fans and the media, and despite the dire circumstances the team found themselves in, Murphy didn't let the situation faze him, as he believed that better days were ahead. In fact, Murphy believed in his team so much that he never asked to be traded elsewhere, and he never looked to jump ship, at least according to the man himself anyway. However, once Detroit expressed interest in adding Murphy at the deadline, and with the opportunity to chase another championship with the Red Wings, Murphy ultimately decided to waive his no-trade clause and let the deal happen. That said, this decision wasn't an easy choice for him, as Murphy said that he had always dreamed of playing for Toronto, and he was excited every time he stepped out onto the ice with the maple leaf on his chest. But ultimately, the chance to win another championship was simply too good to pass up. So now that we know how and why this deal was made, what happened after the trade? Well, following his move to Detroit, Larry Murphy would join the Red Wings roster for the remainder of the 96-97 season and look to finish the year strong with his new side. Finding a home alongside talented youngster and future league legend Nicholas Lidstrom, Murphy would score at a similar pace to his time in Toronto, as he potted 6 points in his final 12 games of the year, to give him a full season total of 9 goals and 45 points in 81 games. Though these scoring numbers would be his lowest full season total since the start of the decade, Murphy would more than make up for it during the playoffs, as his 11 points in 20 postseason games would help Detroit clinch the 1997 Stanley Cup Championship. So after being booed by his own fan base, and after being traded from his childhood team, Larry Murphy had just lifted the 3rd championship of his NHL career. If that wasn't impressive enough for you though, thanks to his 52-point performance during the following 97-98 season and his 15 points in 22 playoff games, Murphy would help Detroit go all the way once again and clinch their second consecutive Stanley Cup. So less than 2 years after leaving Toronto, Larry Murphy had won his 4th Stanley Cup and had clinched back-to-back championships for the second time in his career. Just in case you had forgotten, Toronto acquired absolutely nothing when they traded Murphy to Detroit and were even paying a portion of his salary during this span. Talk about a lopsided deal, eh, folks? Following his second championship with Detroit, Murphy would play 3 more seasons with the Red Wings, score 113 points in 218 games during that span, and book his final trip to the NHL All-Star Game in 1999, before hanging up his skates for good at the conclusion of the 2000-01 NHL season. This meant that after part of 21 seasons in the league, Larry Murphy had called it a day on his career, having scored an astonishing 288 goals and 1,217 points in 1,615 regular season games, as well as 152 points in 215 playoff games. Whilst these outstanding totals have helped Murphy finish 5th all-time in scoring and 4th all-time in games played by an NHL defenseman, it would also earn him a place in the Hockey Hall of Fame, as he was inducted during his first year of eligibility back in 2004. And what about the Leafs? How did things turn out for them in the years after this trade? Well, as Murphy took his talents to Detroit, Toronto would continue to struggle for the rest of the 96-97 season, finishing the year with an abysmal 30-44-8 record. As Murphy lifted his 3rd Stanley Cup championship, the Leafs would be forced to watch from home, as they missed the playoffs for the first time in half a decade. From there, Toronto would produce mixed results for the rest of Murphy's tenure in the league, as they would miss the playoffs once again during the following 97-98 season when Murphy was winning his 4th cup, before returning to the postseason in each of the next 3 years. While they would make it past the first round every single time, Toronto would be unable to go the distance, as they were eliminated in the 1999 Western Conference Finals before suffering 2 second-round exits shortly after. Given that Murphy played an integral role in winning a pair of championships during this span, and given that Toronto could have received something in return when they traded him, these potential assets may not have fixed all of Toronto's problems, or even helped them repeat Detroit's success, but they certainly could have helped. If there's a moral to be taken from this whole ordeal, it is probably this. No matter how bad your team is performing, how upset your fanbase gets, or how much your players are getting paid, if you are going to trade a future Hall of Famer who is still putting up respectable numbers in his mid-30s, make sure you get something, anything in return. After all, that player could go on to win a pair of championships and further solidify their legacy in the league, while your team suffers the consequences for many years to come. And that was a look at the biggest trade deadline steal in NHL history. What do you guys think about this deal? Do you think that Detroit fleeced Toronto, or do you think Toronto actually made the right move? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching guys, I hope you have enjoyed. I've been Oddman Rush, and I'll see you again next time.